Greetings my fellow Fright Fiends, it's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and today's video is a very special video. This is one that I have been wanting to do for quite a while now, and this is going to be my retrospective of the Unbreakable Saga, which is M. Night Shyamalan's superhero saga, consisting of Unbreakable, Split, and of course the recently released Glass. Unbreakable has been a film that has been important to me for nearly 2 decades. I was probably one of the few huge fans of it upon its release back in the year 2000. I saw it opening weekend, I loved it, but a lot of people didn't get it, and I think it's just because of the timing, that superhero movies were not what they are today. At that time, the only really big superhero movie that had come out, besides the movie Blade, which had come out in 1998, was X-Men, and that had just come out several months prior to Unbreakable's release. A lot of people looked at Unbreakable as a disappointing follow-up to his hugely successful film The Sixth Sense, which had been a box office juggernaut as well as a huge hit with audiences the summer prior. Unbreakable for me was a very personal film, a very slow-moving, character-driven superhero story that was unlike anything I had seen before. It had dark elements to it, it had very strong comic book themes to it, and I was really shocked by how filmgoers and critics just kind of wrote the film off as kind of a disappointment. I'm so happy now that people are embracing Unbreakable, that it has become some of people's favorites of Shyamalan's work. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about these 3 films. Of course, Split came out 2 years ago and shocked everyone when you found out that it was in the Unbreakable universe. That ending on that film was something that got spoiled for me because it was all over the internet before I had a chance to see the movie, but it still packed a punch and really just got me excited for Glass. Now, there will be minor spoilers in here for people who haven't seen Unbreakable or Split, but I will not spoil anything regarding Glass. I want people to go and appreciate that film and watch that film on their own, and I don't want to spoil anything for them. Talking about Unbreakable, though, and just how important that film is to me, I still have my original copy of it when it was first released. It was the Vista series. So I still have this one, and it's a fantastic, one of my favorite DVDs that I ever got. I don't even know if you can still buy it, and it comes with postcards, and it's a really cool fold out. This postcard that came with it, you got Elijah on one side, and you got David Dunn on the other. Just a fantastic film and one of my favorite DVD sets that I own. I was a huge fan already of Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson. I loved their interaction in Die Hard with a Vengeance, and it was great to see them come back together in a film and play very different characters. When this film came out, at that time in my life, I had just graduated college. I had also had a huge heartbreak that several months prior to this film coming out, where my girlfriend at the time, my long-term girlfriend, had left me. So I very much identify with David Dunn, who at the beginning of this film is going through almost like a midlife crisis. I mean, I was only 26 at the time, but I was going through a crisis in my own way, where my life had kind of gone off the rails, where things that I thought were going to happen and work out a certain way were not coming to be. So I really identified with how David Dunn feels lost. He doesn't know what his place is in the world. The setup for this film, where he is the only survivor of this horrible train crash, is just amazing. And Bruce Willis it was such a different role for Bruce Willis. It was one of the most dramatic performances Bruce Willis has ever given. On the flip side of David Dunn, you have the character of Elijah Price, played by the amazing Sam Jackson. And what I identified right away about him was he was a man that loved art. He loved comic book art and looked at it not just as something for children, but as actual art, and I just love that about his character. Plus, he's someone that has this horrible disease, and it's just like, so he grew up in his life not being able to do things like other kids. He lived through comic books, and I was kind of a lonely kid. I was someone that was kind of a loner, and I was by myself a lot, and comic books were how I got a lot of my excitement in terms of being enthralled by the stories and the artwork. It also plays into why horror films were so big for me. They were my escapism. They were escapism from, my life and, being kind of on my own a lot. I also really love the character of Charlene Woodard, who played Elijah's mom. The scenes with Elijah and her, especially when he's a little boy, really connected with me because my mom was a single parent, and she would buy me comic books. And that connection, that relationship that the two of them had was very special. And it's something that I really identified with right away because my mom and I are really close. I also thought Spencer Treat Clark as Joseph Dunn, David's son, I love that relationship between the two of them. I love the scene where David Dunn is lifting weights, and his son just keeps putting more and more on it to see how much his father can lift. I also love the connection that the two of them have. It becomes a very special connection, one that even blossoms so much throughout the film, especially at the end, when David quietly reveals to his son that he is super strong, that he is a superhero, that he is superhuman. I just thought that was really so well done without any real dialogue. It was just such a strong scene and such a fantastic scene. The scene where David Dunn realizes how strong he is, where he takes down, I guess you call it the orange jumpsuit man that actually attacks the family and kidnaps them. That scene is still, with the score by James Newton Howard, is absolutely beautiful. Even though it's a scene where he's choking out this guy and this guy's slamming him into the wall, I absolutely love that scene. It gets me every time I watch it because it's so poetic and beautiful, where this man has finally realized who he is and what he can do and his purpose. Even though you eventually find out that Elijah Price is the villain of the film, which is heartbreaking, you understand why he is the way he is. I mean, throughout the course of the film, there's these little hints that keep getting dropped about why each man is where they are at this stage of their life. And the ending of this is just one of the most heartbreaking endings to a film. At the top of the video, when Split came out 2 years ago, at first I didn't know that it was going to have any connection to Unbreakable. I thought it was just going to be almost like a kidnapping horror style movie with this guy that has multiple personalities. I'm a huge fan of James McAvoy, not just from the X-Men films, but I also loved him in Wanted. I think he's a fantastic actor, and what this man put into this performance of Kevin or Hedwig or the Beast or all these different characters that he plays, just amazing tour de force performance. It's so amazing to see him turn these characters off and on. His facial expressions, his demeanor, everything about him, the way he walks, the way he moves, you believe that he is each one of these individual characters. He does it flawlessly. I also was a fan of Anya Taylor-Joy at this point, who plays Casey in the film, because I loved her in The Witch. The thing that I loved about her in this is that while the other two girls that are kidnapped along with her are hysterical, she's been through things because she tells each one of them to do something differently in order to avoid being assaulted or hurt or anything. And I just thought it was really subtle and very well done. And she's the smartest one of the group because she knows how to survive a hostage situation like this, because she's been through something traumatic in her life. You don't know what it is. You come to find out as the course of the film goes. I also was a huge fan of Betty Buckley, who played Dr. Fletcher. I loved the connection that she has with Kevin and all the various performances that McAvoy portrays. The doctor-patient dynamic I thought worked really well. I just think she was amazing, and I love that relationship. I think both McAvoy and Buckley worked really well together in those scenes. The strength of this film is James McAvoy. I mean, his performance, and when he eventually becomes the Beast towards the end of the film, is terrifying, the way that he portrays this character. And I think this is more of a horror movie than a comic book movie. Until that last shot where you realize that you are in the same world as Unbreakable, and then you see David Dunn at the very end of this film in the diner. I just love all of that, and that connection, that connective tissue to the Unbreakable universe that was so subtly done. I think it's one of Shyamalan's best twist endings that he's ever done. And now we are on to Glass, which just came out this past weekend. It was a film that is easily one of my most anticipated movies of not only life, but of 2019. I was just so excited to see this film. And I was a little disappointed when I started hearing that people were not very happy with the way that the film was playing out, especially the critics. The critic reviews started coming in, and while they had been relatively positive for Split, they were on the negative side for this new film, for Glass, and almost tarnishing the legacy that Shyamalan was building with this film series. There was just a lot of mixed reactions to this film. People were not happy with it. It did not play out like a lot of people wanted it to. Like I said, I'm not going to give any spoilers here, so I'm just going to give my overall thoughts on the film and how I reacted to it seeing it for the first time. I fucking loved it. And I loved it for being original. I think this film will grow in popularity over time, much like Unbreakable did, because again, like I said, it was not a fan favorite when it came out. It was a very different and ballsy way to do a finale to this film series. It's a much quieter film than I think people wanted it to be, but it brought me right back into the universe I had longed to be back in since Unbreakable ended. I had the same feels. It was great to see some of the characters returning, especially Bruce Willis as David Dunn. He isn't as, I mean, not to spoil it too much, but David Dunn is not as much of the focus as he is in this film, and I think that's one of the disappointments for some people, because this is a film that does focus on not only him, but also James McAvoy's Kevin, aka the Beast, and of course Sam Jackson returning for the first time in 19 years as Mr. Glass. They're all in this asylum, so it's not, it's a much different movie than I wanted, but I have to commend Shyamalan for taking this chance, for taking this risk, and doing a very unconventional superhero finale for a series of films that people love now. It just felt like it just was this perfect trilogy. And there's going to be people that just don't like the way it concludes, but I loved it. I thought it made so much sense to me. It was so different. It was so original. And yes, I wasn't happy with some things that happened to some characters, but I really respected Shyamalan's vision, and I think he did a beautiful film. I love the color palette to it. I love the music in it. Wes Dylan Thornton, who had done Split. A lot of people complained that James Newton Howard's score from Unbreakable wasn't used that much in it, but I was kind of glad. I mean, it was in touches here and there, but I'm glad they went with a different score, because this is a different type of movie. But like I said, everything for me came together. It ended beautifully. It was very poetic. It wasn't the sequel I necessarily wanted, but it's one that I'm glad surprised me. And it was one that I thought was original, and the heart was put into it. Everybody gave it their all. It was great to see all these guys come back to do this final film in this trilogy. And I know that there's going to be people that hate it because it didn't end the way they wanted it to. It didn't end the way I wanted it to. But I respect it, and it's one that has stayed with me since I saw it, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love all three films. So that is my thoughts on the trilogy. If you guys want to share your thoughts down below, please no spoilers on Glass. Like I said, I did a couple of spoilers here in terms of Unbreakable and Split, but they've been out for a long time. Glass is brand new. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so please keep the comments spoiler free if you can. And thanks so much, everyone, for watching this. If you guys want to support me, my social media links are down below. I also got my Patreon. I no longer have Twitter. I got rid of that. So it's just Patreon, Instagram, Facebook. So you guys want to help support me, you guys can check that out. Support to the Patreon page if you can. I really appreciate that. And stay tuned for some more great stuff I'll have coming up real soon. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. I have a Patreon page. If everybody wants to help support me, the link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats, and Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?